All right, Houston, of course, won the regular season title. And then Saturday night, and we'll have Jeremy Branham, who's the voice of Houston basketball. Saturday night, the night before, Baylor ran into the Hilton South, I guess you could say, atmosphere and electricity. And then Saturday night, they jumped on Houston and, stuck their foot on their neck and broke them pretty quickly. Houston, of course, they kind of limped into the weekend too, but Iowa State crushed the Big 12 in the tournament in Kansas City.
Yeah, they did. They played exceptionally well. I was very impressed with what they did. They canceled out their last loss to Kansas State pretty much right away. So that was done. Then they rolled through everybody else that they played, including Baylor and Houston, and really just, I think they're in a good spot going in because they play defense. They're not, one of those teams that's in the top 50 in both, I know, but they could make some noise for sure. Again, also kind of stuck that they got in the UConn side of the bracket. So, but look, they're scary. I think it's as bad news for UConn as it is for Iowa State. Just, if you're the number one overall seed and you've got Iowa State and Auburn and some of the other teams on their side, Illinois, yeah, that's tough. But even still, I really like what they did the other day. I've seen a lot of people, and this happens every year, when Iowa State or Kansas, win or play in the final, and there's no home court. There's a home court advantage for them and nobody else. I say, okay, well then buy tickets and go. I know it's harder because you got to travel and you got to keep traveling week after week after week, but. When the tournament was in Dallas, no one went there either. So
yeah, I think that's a little overblown to say nobody went. I know what you're saying though, Paul, but I know Ashley Hodge pulled receipts, and there were more people than given credit for. You would think, based on the way it's talked about, that it was like ghost town, and that wasn't necessarily the case. But yeah, it's not the same atmosphere as Kansas City. So I saw a lot of that back and forth about the host site. I mean, I don't think if you don't ever give anybody else a chance to prove they can host it, then it's always going to be the best place because you haven't been to Dallas in how many years? And there's other spots you could potentially go. But yeah, it's not like it was is in Kansas City, and that is Hilton South, and it was every bit of that. I know that was something that a lot of the coaches were impressed by and also frustrated by. And I know the saying is, well, then go and beat them and prove it, or, do something different. But, I mean, you can't not pretend like that isn't a massive advantage. Mm-hmm. And not every school's built to be able to turn out like that. So credit for them being able to do it. It certainly played a role. And then you have a great basketball team on top of that. And that was a combination that nobody in the Big 12 had an answer for last week. So they went out and they earned that tournament championship. And gotta I guess not the draw that they desired the following day, but I think they'll be just fine in the tournament. Very curious about how deep of a run they make, because that is a team that you circle and you go, national title possibilities. They're in the discussion, I think. They're not top of mind necessarily, but they're definitely not too far down the list do you get before you go, what about Iowa State, and what could they possibly do when they're clicking on all cylinders? And they were clicking on all cylinders in KC, so that was super impressive turnout by the fans. Not surprising. We've seen them do that before. I think it just took much more center stage this year, it seems like, and just felt like there was much more conversation about it because it was just so lopsided. I mean, it was 100 fans from the opposing school to 17,000 plus.
Yeah,
it was insane, and so that had to be a lot of fun for Cyclones fans, and then to win on top of that, what a week for TJ Otzelberger and company. Congratulations.
I understand it's closer, but it's also the Midwest, and like in certain other places, it's just a basketball love fest.
Yeah.
Now, if Iowa State was 10-20, would that many fans be there in Kansas City for the first round? They may have a bunch. They would still have a lot, though. It's a very passionate fan base. They travel well in all the sports.
And look, maybe I should go back, and to be fair to Dallas, the issue isn't necessarily attendance so much it is as the area sucks for that kind of event.
Well, but if it's at American Airlines Arena now, with all of what they've built up in downtown Dallas, that place is different than when it was around Reunion Arena and it was kind of there.
Yeah, well, no. AAC, though, has... AAC, when they was last there, was barren around there. It's not barren any longer.
No, Paul, have you been there?
It's not barren any longer. It's not like it's not
but it's not Power and Light.
No, it's not the Power and Light district, but it's not intended to be either. And so it isn't what it was a few years ago. I'm not advocating for Dallas. I'm just saying that if you say, well, nobody else turns out, and the last time you even attempted it was over a decade ago. Well, things changed. You know,
Yeah.
maybe it's different because Houston fans can get. But I'm not like making this an anti-KC and Iowa State thing because I've seen so much of that. I'm just saying that I'm not opposed to moving it around, but I do understand you know what? If you don't like the home court advantage, then turn up like we turn up, and nobody turns up like them.
Who won the Big 12 men's basketball title last year in the tournament? Texas did.
Yeah.
Texas went in there and said, F you, we're going to win this tournament, no matter who else is a part of the tournament. Kansas, Baylor, whoever. They went in there and they won it. So it can be done, and maybe more often not, but just thought about that. Now, one thing about Iowa State, the one thing, if you look at the Ken Palm and all the data efficiency, their defense is ranked number 1, and Scott Drew brought that up, in the country. Talk about what they've done under TJ Otzelberger. I mean, it's unbelievable. They are 55th offensively, which is not bad. That's not bad, but they are the number 5 ranked overall defensive efficiency. Houston, number 2. UConn is at number 1. Baylor has the 6th best offense, 281 defense. And that's been obvious. They have had, we brought that up earlier. Now, speaking of Iowa State, this is from Ryan Hammer. In the Ken Palm era, no top 2 seed that started the season unranked has ever made the Final Four. They averaged 2 wins per tournament, most recently Marquette and Purdue. Iowa State playing at an unreal level, but will they break that streak/curse? They're playing at a level where they could and should, but again, it's one of those trends over 20-something years that I saw yesterday on my timeline.
Yeah, I mean, they're a nasty bunch, and I mean that in the best type of way. And so they're ferocious, and they got all over Houston the other day. And, you know, the Baylor result, I mean, the combination of just playing really good defense and then what shots that you did have, you clanked them all night. That was a recipe for disaster. But then for them to turn around and just lay it on Houston like they did was so incredibly impressive. And you have guys now who are emerging that, you know, maybe just for health or just, you know, the flow of the season, it just feels like they're starting to get like everybody playing really well all at the right time. And so we'll see how that carries them through. But yeah, it was an amazing performance by the Cyclones, and you definitely have a reason to return to the Kelvin Sampson, TJ Otzelberger Coach of the Year argument if you want to. And that was a fine argument to be had to begin with. I mean, you could see both sides of it, but you could revisit that again after what ISU did to U of H. And so, yeah, those are 2 programs that are going to be right there in the mix to hopefully go and appear and, if not, win a national championship if you're looking at it from the Big 12 standpoint. I know Brett Yormark's got to feel good about the opportunities that they'll have, even if it isn't quite the amount of teams that you wanted because of Oklahoma not getting in. But at the top between Houston and Iowa State, and, you know, Baylor, if they play well, a lot of people love their draw to at least get to the Sweet 16. You know, that's easier said than done. They haven't done that since they won the national title, and that's 3 years ago now at this point. So, yeah, I'm excited to see how this all unfolds, but Iowa State's clicking at the right time for sure.
All right, I want you guys to think. Houston was probably as good as anybody throughout the year and still might be. Juwan Roberts' health, an extra day or 2 of him getting himself healthy. Iowa State didn't just smash Houston Saturday. Remember, they beat them early in the conference.
Yeah.
They also had an incredibly tight game down in Houston. So they've played 3 times, and Iowa State won 2 of those 3. So let's see if they could break that little dam of number 2 seeds who also were unranked to start the year. All right, when we come back, Houston, they kind of